Alright, so I have just read Give Him the Sharkurin Charm Aggressive. Now, I really didn't I went to a certain point with that one, and I just want to go back and see what happens if I just do flirt with him. I don't know if I'm gonna go back and try endearing, but if you're seeing this part right now, that means I went with this option, so let's see how this goes. Her eyes no longer met his. Try as he might, the knight couldn't help but drift his eyes towards her breast. He would be putty in her fingertips. Gripping the shaft of her banner, Nadja knelt down to meet his eyes once again. She fluttered her own at him, an adoring smile traveling over her face. I do. I am Nadja the Shurkurins, and I am here to gain an audience, to bask in your emperor's grace. She leant forward to plant a colossal paw onto his shoulder plate, heaving her chest out towards him without subtlety. Her robust hips arched out for him to gaze on as well. Her tail swayed hypnotically from side to side. My dearest knight, would you fetch him for me? She could feel the young tiger shaking in his armor. She could even feel his heartbeat racing through his shimmering plate mail. She'd captured him with the snare of a youthful vigor. As much as we'd enjoy peace talks, His Majesty isn't here, but if you wish to cease fire, wait for a message to be delivered. Each moment the knight tried to compose himself was another opportunity for the lioness. Distracting him with a gentle caress to his shoulder, her tail lightly swatted the ground behind her. There was a rhythm to her swats, a rhythm known well to her people. During diplomatic exchanges, the Shurkurins devised special cues with their tails to hint towards their men. Each cue varied depending on how the negotiations went. In this case, all of her tribesmen saw what she wanted them to. Lusty. Nadja cut him off by leaning temptingly close. Surely he could smell her here. Her eyes widened with pools of affection pouring out to him. My dearest Jeremy, we have traveled so far. How long must we wait? Jeremy's pale face turned as pink as a tulip. Ding! An audible crash of metal on metal emitted from his groin. His own chainmail tightened, causing him to squirm uncomfortably under Nadja's paw. A devious smile crept over Nadja's maw. She sprang at this young knight's needs. She brushed her fingers up to the back of his neck and teasingly pulled the scruff of his fur, toying it with her thumb, while cooing. Then again, since you're already here, we could just take you in as a prisoner of war, Keep you in our company while we wait for the Emperor to show up? She directs his gaze with hers and shows her clan behind them. A majority of the front lines were now female. Women of all races and sizes gleefully waved with longing smiles towards Jeremy. Some even loosened their armor to be more revealing. Jeremy shivered and squirmed timidly while the lioness nipped at the back of his neck. His tail fidgeted uncontrollably, beating against the back of his saddle. Her creeping claws felt like they tickled down to his bone. It was starting to get hot in his armor as Nadja sensually tortured him. Oh my gods. Gods? Nadja reveled in the knight's sweet response, toying with his confusion once more. She scooped his head into her chest, grinning out in the sight. She changed her tone. Solemn, mocking words fell from her mouth. Oh, by the gods, who am I kidding? A noble knight such as you shouldn't endure such an unjust fate. You are the emissary to the Emperor, after all. How hopeless of me to dream of the Emperor's viceroy. And what would it say about us? I'm sure someone like the Emperor appreciates the diligence towards him. We should do just that. Right. Now go, speak on our behalf, noble knight, and we'll plentifully await for your return. Before the knight could recover, Nadja swept the back of her paw over his cheek, then gave a firm smack to the rear of the horse. Jeremy dangled limp from the horse as it sped off, trying desperately to firm his seat in the saddle. Nadja twirled to face her tribe, a devilish grin creeping across her muzzle, showing off pointed white teeth. Keep your weapons out, sisters. If that was what passes for the Emperor's best, this war's climax will be ours for the taking. Haha. The entirety of the group hollered. If the Empire could be humiliated in such a way without so much as a sweat broken beneath the Shurkeran fur, this war finally gave a sliver of hope for them. Okay. Quick little recap. That is completely different than the other option from the first sentence. The other option, where if you do it aggressively, she ends up like getting ready to pounce, flies up in the air and jumps on the back of the horse, puts her foot on part of the horse so it can't stand back up while being on the horse behind him, and then kind of like does a little bit of aggressive stuff. And what happens is it ends up stopping, and the Emperor with a couple men come out from the forest and confront her. And then Jeremy kind of has like falls off his horse and gets dragged behind as the horse goes back towards the men, but he doesn't want to be like, he doesn't want to like surrender like that, so he gets back on his horse, or the guy helps him and he tries to stay there, but then the Emperor says go ahead and go back to camp, and so he does that, and then they talk with the Emperor for a little bit. I kind of like this way a little bit better because it feels like the Emperor had to come to save his guy because it was kind of like too aggressive and it made them look like monsters. So I kind of like this one better. So this is actually the playthrough we're going to keep. So I'm going to scratch that, but I just wanted to acknowledge that's the choosing a path there really changes it, and it makes me curious what endearing does to change anything, but we'll go with the flirt option there. I think that's good enough. All right, let's continue. Enough of my yapping. Jeremy crosses the threshold to the Imperial camp, being greeted by Imperial sentinels. They wasted no time and went directly to the Emperor. Inside his private tent, the Emperor and his officers huddled around the war map. Once Jeremy entered, everyone's attention snapped to him. You're back. Yeah. What news have you brought? Did they do anything to you? Jeremy paused with a sigh after being cut off so frequently. Speak up, lad. The enemy's literally on our toes right now. Jeremy held up a finger to gain a word in the conversation. I don't think enemy is the right word to describe them. At least in this case anyways. Everyone stared quizzically at him. How do you mean? Well, they really are more friendly than most we've encountered. Everyone in the tent threw a morbid look his way. Friendlier? Friendlier how? The young knight recounted his brief time with the mighty lioness. Every word, every touch, and every smell he shared with him. The thought of her touch alone made him start to fumble his words. You see, Lady Nadja presented herself, held herself in such a manner I didn't find threatening. The Emperor held his paw in front of his face. Lady Nadja, you say? Who is she to the Shurkerans? A messenger, an officer? What? She shows herself to be the leader of them all, my lord. She wishes to have a word with you. Does she now? And I suppose the entire Shurkeran war party is just her entourage? Yes, now that we're on the topic, what did their lineup consist of? More infantry, archers, cavalry? Oh, their lineup? Jeremy's body stiffened at recalling his time with the Shurkerans. Memories of all the Shurkeran men and women looting over him made his cheeks flush. His tail coiled around his waist as a nervous fidget broke out from his leg. His legs fidgeted beneath his armor. Spit it out already. What type of gear were they packing? Oh, they were packing something, all right. Both the general and the Emperor rubbed their eyes in annoyance, all while the lieutenant snickered to himself. All right, Sir Jeremy, that will be enough for now. Indeed, Lieutenant. Yes, sire? See to it that Jeremy makes it to the watch house. Don't even bother stripping him down. Just toss the cold bucket of water over him for now. Heh, it'll be an honor, my lord. Come along, lady killer. The towering bull patted Jeremy on the shoulder and motioned for him to follow. Jeremy, however, trotted forward first to bow to the Emperor. He held his own tail in both paws as he did so. I'll be on my horse, ready to be at your beck and call, sire. You're still getting a cold shower, lad. Jeremy's grip of his tail tightened. A mournful groan bellowed from his chest once he dread of a cold shower sunk in. Yes, sire, at once. Hurin guided Jeremy out of the tent, leaving only Salir and Pack. That was enlightening. Of all of the years we've had him speak on the Empire's behalf, never have I seen him so flustered. Salir took a deep sip from the gauntlet, mid-thought. Curious to see how the war has changed the Shurkarens. Perhaps fate has crafted them into the mightiest and most seductive. If that was the case, I feel sorry for Sir Jeremy then. He most likely never stood a chance with them. It makes perfect sense in this situation. We'd be stained in blood by now if the war party was out to overpower us. They're going for more close and personal approach, it seems. This war may have just made them desperate enough to try this approach on us. Much as I would love to poke holes in that strategic logic of yours, desperate times would call for desperate measures. Especially with what that lioness was wearing. The Emperor threw a weak laugh out before drowning himself in a goblet. Tempting, very tempting. It'll break her heart when she figures out I took a vow of celibacy to swear myself to no one until this war was done. Quite the ill fate for a seductress, ill fate indeed. The general shook his head in bemusement to the Emperor's mocking words. He rubbed his eyes with his talons and sighed. Shut up. What? I take my vows seriously. Yes, it acts as the perfect defense whenever arranged marriages come up. Well, that is one of the benefits to the vow. You are correct on that part. You honestly believe that Naja woman brought her entire clan as a gift just to propose to you? Do you truly think the mighty Shurkaren warlords will surrender their army for a chance in your pants? The Emperor thought on that concept briefly, taking another sip of his goblet and shrugging. What? You don't think highly enough of your Emperor to achieve such a feat? No, I'm just imagining all of those lovely suitors we've allied with during the war. How distraughtful do you think they would be if you went and chose a savage over them? I'm more tempted to speak with this Naja more than ever now. Oh, that is just simply cruel. Are you the desperate one here? I don't care how long it takes to find a queen. I'm not going to be wrangled in by these petty traditions that every kingdom seems to follow. None of your previous suitors tickled your fancy? No. Half of them were already old barren. We couldn't even have a child if we tried. And the rest were still children in their own rights. Salir took a rough chug of his drink and emptied his goblet. The Empire will be called many things after this war is finished, but I'll be damned if it's remembered like that. General Pax sipped his own drink, chuckled softly at the Emperor's expense. What of that? Captain Pelka's daughter, she was a ripe age, last I remembered. The boar captain? We've seen firsthand how they eat. We would have to reinforce the entire dining room with their aggressive eating habits. But she's the only princess that meets the age requirement, my lord. If we can even call her a princess, you have the best eyes out of all of us. But not even you could tell the difference between the men and women at that diner party. No. I only had a single drink beforehand. I told you this. It was really dark. There were bubbles and wine and... Both broke out into laughter. Neither could bear how ridiculous it was to go from war tactics to this. Pax was the first to collect himself. Shall we get going, my lord? We don't want to keep your next suitor waiting. Shut up. The desert sun had reached its peak, readying itself for the center stage of the spectacle that was to come. Cascading clouds slowly crept up on the Shurkaren's front. The winds pushed rigorously at their backs. Not even the gods seemed to contain their eagerness to the brewing conflict. Alright, I feel like this is a good check mark right here for today. I actually really like how this the choice I made at the beginning of this turned out. It was a lot better than the previous choice I made. I chose the aggressive one because I thought it would be funny because he was really short and she was like massive in comparison. And it was like that thing where everyone was obsessed about Lady whatever her name was in Resident Evil Village. But I feel like this seems a whole lot more promising. When they met, it looked like they were gonna fight right then and there. The Emperor and her were it started off so aggressive, and it just felt like it was just the wrong move. Even while I was reading it, I was just like, it's funny what's happening, but like, they're just gonna look like scum. And this way, it actually looks like, even though they look kind of like whores a little bit with the way they were acting, and they're kind of seeing them as these lusty people. But that aside, I feel like they put them in a much better light. I think if I acted endearing, it would be even better. But you know what? I just wanted to put a little spice into it. And you know what? That was the perfect medium answer out of those two. Because I think one was like overly aggressive, and then this one was just a little overly saucy, and the other one would have probably been overly white knighted. So it's fine. I'm happy with how this story is going so far with that. I'm going to save the game here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you guys in the next chapter of Regal Tells.